Welcome to Tiger Talk. I'm Dean Rodriguez for middle school and for high school here at TCS. Today's episode is all about high school. It's that season of growth, there's responsibility, identity, and preparation for life beyond TCS. All of the messiness, but yet at the same time, it is so meaningful. And with me, my co-host,
Julia McInerney.
So today we're joined by two incredible teachers who not only shape students academically, but also bring unique global perspective to our school. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Natasha Jayawardena.
I'm Mr. Buenano.
All right, Ms. J, Coach. We're going to kick it off. We're going to do a little warm-up. So let's start off with one word to describe the high school spirit here at TCS.
I would say nurturing.
Personable.
Personable and nurturing. All right. So high school is a defining season. I think we can all agree with that. So students are discovering who they are while at the same time facing real pressures. So, Julia, what do you think about that?
So, what do you guys believe is the biggest challenge high schoolers face today?
I would say the biggest challenge would be dealing with their identity and self-discovery. Most students really struggle with identity. What do you say?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think the Bible talks a lot about, putting to death the old and, being reborn in the new, being reborn in spirit. So people kind of just discovering themselves and what the truth in them is. So, yeah, I definitely think that's a problem or a common issue in today's high school.
Right, identity. We're correct. It's just we had a whole month when we talked about and we touched on identity and this idea of the when we know who God is, when we know when we discover who our Creator is when we ultimately we discover who we are.
Right.
So that's that tension, that challenge, and at the same time, it's a joy to see it when students that aha moment when they discover who God is. It just influences so much. It influences how they think, how they talk, their habits, right, their perspectives. It's just discovering who God is, and ultimately, as teachers and as staff, we're excited to see how you guys come alongside students to help them come to that point, and in all of its messy glory, right? So here's a thought, Julia.
Yeah,
as a senior, go ahead.
Yeah, as a current senior, I can say the pressure is real. There's a lot of expectations between academics, college, social life, your own personal identity. So from your perspectives, how can students handle that pressure in a healthy and God-honoring way?
I would say that they need to just go back to their basics. Go back to your foundation. Start praying. Go back to the Word of God because that's the best place to start. If you want to know about yourself, you first need to know your Creator. So go back to the Word. The more you learn about your Creator, the more you will learn about yourself. So go back to the basics. And also, I feel that most high school students need to have a good group of friends that they can be accountable to. Accountability is key.
Yeah, I think a lot of students right now are still young and still kind of figuring things out. So the best thing for me would be to just kind of step out of the situation. Sometimes our flesh wrestles with the way that we think, and going through the heat of the battle is can be consuming a lot. So if they take a step back, just reset and try to think things from a fresh perspective. Like you said, had a good friend group that's going to be able to, give you honest advice, because oftentimes, we typically can give others good advice, but when it comes to our situations, we don't take our own advice, or we don't see things as clearly because we're in it. Right. So I think when our flesh kind of makes us think that way, then that puts us in a tough spot. So taking a step back, having people to help you out is important.
Yeah, just navigating a lot of the pressures, especially in high school. When you're facing pressures in academic, social pressures. Society, how society is influencing students today. But I love what you said about foundation, going back to the basics, and I think that's so key. Is if we can't construct or build up unless our foundation is sturdy. One of the things I remember, as because I have a young son who comes here at Timothy, by the way, and I remember when we would work on Legos together. And he was putting these Legos together, and they kept toppling over. And then finally, I used that moment for it to be a teachable moment for him. And then I showed him and I helped them discover the word foundation. I said, hey, if we're gonna build up, we gotta make sure our foundation is strong.
Right.
We gotta make sure that it doesn't matter how many towers we build, unless the foundation is strong and sturdy, it will always fall. And so every time, him and I would put together Legos, we would always make sure we would say it together. First, let's start with building our foundation. And I think that's where even our students need to start in that place. Is say, hey, the starting point needs to be God first as a priority, because it influences and just speaks to so many areas of their lives.
Yeah, I think that Timothy does a great job of trying to teach people that, which is
Yeah.
like putting God and Christ at the center of everything, and that being the foundation of what you do. Oftentimes, I think that people's perspective of Jesus and God and their theology and just all the things that they think about that is the foundation.
Yeah,
So putting an emphasis on that is helping people grow a strong foundation.
yeah.
So yeah, that kind of governs the way I do everything. Is like what I think about Jesus and what I think about God and how I think the world works. So yeah, I think that ultimately, pretty much governs everything that I do, which is my foundation. Yeah.
Absolutely, I love it, and because one of the beautiful things is the Christ-centered education that students get here is that we're able to integrate.
It's in
scripture.
everything. It's in everything.
And so that's one of the key things. You're not just getting math, but you're getting math intersected with the gospel. You're not just
Exactly.
getting literature; you're getting literature intersected.
That's even an
Absolutely.
appeal from a teacher's perspective. Like, it doesn't have to be straight curriculum and papers and this and that. I mean, it is. At the end of the day, we're in academia, so it's what we got to do. But at the same time, you could always throw in, your devotional. You could always throw in
I love it.
your perspective on how, this topic in this unit might reflect something that you were thinking about at church or something you were just, kind of just wrestling with. So, yeah, I think it's even appealed to a teacher perspective. Like, teaching here gives you that freedom, that liberty to kind of go off on,
That presentation of biblical worldview, that's so important because there's so much knowledge out there, but how do you make it relevant to today? And then how do you understand it through a biblical view, like a biblical lens? That's what we are doing here. That's what we are trying to do.
Yeah, because you still teach all your stuff, right? You still get your, what's it called, Lord of the Flies,
Yeah.
what else, Macbeth.
Yeah,
Right.
all of the
But
heavy
you still-
hitters,
Yep,
right?
you know all my texts.
So you still get to that. You
Right.
still have the academia, strong, academics, but then you also get that part, which is the biblical worldview and the biblical lens that
Right.
is
And
your
that-
foundation.
And that segues into my question for you. A little bit about literature, because you mentioned some of the books that you might cover. Students encounter themes of identity, conflict, and truth. So how do you guide them in your classroom? How do you guide them through those deeper life questions?
So something I have realized after being a teacher for 15 years is that human nature hasn't changed. It's in different literary texts, but human nature hasn't changed. So people have made mistakes. People have, gone through life. And what I do in my classroom is help students to obviously experience and love the language, but also to understand what we can learn from those mistakes so that we don't have to make those mistakes again. And then I definitely do bring in Christ and explain how, Jesus is the only way that we can count on to not make those mistakes again. Right? And I feel like it's a privilege for me to be able to do that in a Christian school setting because, like you may know, I did not always teach in a Christian school back at home in Sri Lanka. I mostly taught in secular schools, and I did not have that privilege. I could not talk to students directly about Jesus. So for me, this was a gift, to be able to share my faith along with the subject matter.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
I feel like the kids here are so curious too. Like, I feel like in this stage of life, your brain's still forming, so you don't know your identity yet. So I feel
Right.
like I can say on behalf of like my classmates, like I feel like in both of your classes, you guys did a great job of like always just bring in like theology talks. I just feel like everyone would always have questions about anything, and you guys would just be willing to like open up about that.
Yeah, there's definitely a hunger for that.
Yes.
I definitely see that in the student body, and people really are able to have like actual
Deep conversations.
Yeah, and that's honestly like my favorite part of all this is those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people want depth, right? I love it. Coach, many students struggle with comparison, right? So especially in academic subjects like math, oh man, math was not my subject. I had to work hard for every grade I got in math. How do you help students push through discouragement and build confidence?
I think the biggest thing is just being honest with yourself and setting the expectation from the jump. I mean, like at the beginning, like for one of the first weeks of class, we kind of go through this. It's kind of like an analogy or a parable, if you will, of like it's an elephant, a fish, a dog, and a monkey, and then it says, okay, we're gonna test you guys on who can climb the tree the fastest, right? And if you compare all those animals, the monkey's gonna win. But that doesn't make the elephant any less than the monkey or the fish any less than the monkey. It's just, we're testing you on this specific part of life, which not everyone's going to be kind of born for. So I tell people not to compare themselves, kind of just be real with how God made you and what your aptitude is and, kind of just the way your brain is wired. For me, it's like kind of like a genetical thing where people are either tuned to math or they're not. So if you're not, it's just being...
I fall under the not category.
Right, and that's okay. When I tell people it's okay because people typically tend to look at math as, okay, these are the smart people, and if you're not good at math, you're not smart, which I think couldn't be further from the truth because I'm a math teacher. I love math. I think it's great, but then there's a lot of different other, areas of, I hate science. I'm not good at science. Chemistry was never my thing. It just never clicked for me. So things like that, it's just I'm good at this, but then this other thing I got to work a little harder for. Yeah. So people that aren't that great at math just got to keep working hard and fight for the grade. I always tell them that character is a better predictor of future success than, how good you are at math. Because character is something you could kind of work on and build, while math, you're just kind of either, for me, in my opinion, it's like either you're born with it or you're not. Yeah. So. Yeah.
A little bit about your global your perspective, I love the diversity here at TCS. One of the beautiful things about TCS is the diversity of experience among our faculty. So both of you bring that type of perspective in that rich culture, and the diversity that's just found in the body of Christ, and you guys bring that. So what is one of the things I guess that we're looking to explore with two of you? Julia, what do you think?
How has those cultural experiences that you guys had shaped the way you view education here in America?
I think that being from third world countries, is Sri Lanka third world country?
Yes.
Yeah, where I'm from is just more if you compare it to here, not as luxurious, right, in Ecuador. So you kind of get a different perspective in that regard, and I think that makes you appreciate it more here, makes you want to instill that into the kids, and that's why we take kids to the DR, because it gives them that perspective, just a fresh set of
fresh set of eyes, and the world around you, of course. So
you just have more experience, you see the world a little more, and obviously, like you said, diversity. So you hear stories like people not necessarily third world countries, but different parts of the country here in America that aren't as privileged as we are. So you get a lot of that with the staff here, and not everyone's necessarily from just around here. Like you get a lot of different.
Yeah, it's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different countries.
So what I wanted to say is, especially in Sri Lanka, the schools that I've worked with, where I had students really working through an exam-oriented education system, and it was stressful for everyone involved. The teachers, the parents, the kids, all of them had a lot of stress going through that system. And it was competitive, it was expensive, so there was a lot involved there. But when I moved here, I also got to experience a system where you could teach students just so that they have that love of learning, and through different activities, and everything didn't really always culminate to an exam, but it was also just meant to get the students excited about that, this whole process of learning, right?
Yeah. Right. So you do see like that difference from students in other countries and students here, but you get to bridge the gap, right? You kind of get to come alongside them in that journey.
Right.
One, give them a Christ-centered perspective that helps them cultivate some of that empathy, some of that that gratitude, right, for what they have, and I think that this is a safe place for them to kind of explore that and to grow in those areas. So it's one of the things that makes Timothy valuable.
I feel like we have it so good here. Like we're privileged.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah.
have it so good. Like Mr. Buenano, you mentioned the DR trip, and like as seniors here, it's our tradition to go on the DR trip. And I'm really excited for that because almost to get like a reality check. Because I feel like we're so used to seeing life one way, and like we don't see poverty,
Yeah.
and we don't see how other people struggle. And like I don't know, me personally, like I'm excited to like get to know the kids there, but also to just like have a moment with God of like, like we're not here as our own life. Like this is our life belongs to God, and like we're supposed to serve. And I feel like we're just so conditioned, especially like as a high schooler, like to just see everything one way, just like go through the motions in life. But then to experience something else, it's like gonna hit different.
Yeah, I think that Bible tells us that we're to grow the church and we're to lead in ministry. And even though we're going to go on this mission trip and try to bless other families with, prayer and, donations, different things like that, I ultimately think it's going to help us and lead us closer to God too, like you said.
Yeah,
'Cause-
Yeah.
absolutely. It'll impact the students just as much. There's a quote, there's a saying that says, high schoolers don't just attend school, they shape the culture. And so with that in mind, question for both of you, here at TCS, what spiritual leadership have you seen in high school amongst some of the students?
I would say that after being the senior advisor for now 4 years, I can say that I've had to experience students who have gone through so many medical challenges, and it was heartbreaking to watch them at the beginning. But over the years, they've overcome those challenges. They've stood strong. They've persevered. And I had the privilege of reading some of their college entry essays, and I was truly inspired to see how much they've grown in spite of the storms, in spite of the valley. Now they have overcome the valley, and they're maybe on that mountaintop experience. I don't know. For me, I feel like it's a mountaintop experience now. To read these beautiful testimonies.
Yeah.
It's not just an essay.
It's another chapter.
It's not just an essay
the
for
living epistle.
exactly.
It is,
It's not just an essay for college. It's also a testimony.
Yeah,
So yeah,
Yeah, God used that. I feel like it's like rare to see faith like that, to still have faith after something that's so severe,
Right.
especially when you're young. Because if it's something that's like that hard, when you like, that's just kind of like crazy. They still had faith after that. Yeah.
I think that testimonies, right? Their personal testimonies from how far they've grown, or just the hunger that we talked about earlier, and how much people want to just dive deep into the Word and kind of just grow in their knowledge and in their faith. Like, I think that speaks a lot to itself. It's just that testimony, that personal example, and that's how I think people lead, is just by their consistency, their determination to want to be better.
Yeah.
I think that you see it not only necessarily with just like upperclassmen, but even right now the sophomores are doing a whole Bible study.
I heard
Right.
that.
Right?
Yeah,
So-
that is so exciting.
There's a lot of people wanting to be better, so that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and nobody pushed that on them. That's something that they decided
Yeah.
to do themselves, which is again a testament of just spiritual hunger, right, and spiritual growth, that desire to seek His presence, right, and that's kind of like the theme. Shameless plug. Theme of the school year is the seeking His presence. Coach, how does the design? Now, we'll talk a little bit about math, since math is your strong suit and my weak point. How does the design and order in math reflect God's character to students?
I think there's a balance to it, right? Because I tend to think of it too much in one direction, where it's like algebraic, and kind of the way I like to put it is that there's a lot of discernment that comes with learning math. I think I challenge the students, like when you're doing math, you're working your discernment muscle. I think that there's a lot of logic, there's a lot of reasoning,
That's good.
a lot of put two together
Yeah.
comes from math, and even things like proof, right? There's a lot of things called proofs in math where you're supposed to combine different information to come to a conclusion. And I think ultimately, the best discerners are able to do that. I think that math itself, there's a lot of intricate things that you see in patterns across the, around the world that are kind of testament to God's existence. So I think that
That's exciting.
not only is there like literal mathematical like operations and equations and different things like that to prove God's existence, but also just the way you think in math, helps you kind of be a better Christian because of, I don't know. And to me, it helps me in my discernment mind.
Yeah, I love that. I had mentioned I had read that New York Times article where it said that mathematically, it is mathematically impossible to have a planet like Earth exist in the universe because of the chaos. Because you have asteroids, you have black holes, you have so many things that are just chaotic in the universe, and somehow our Earth and our planet exist. And there was a New York Times article that said something to the degree that mathematically it is impossible to account for our planet, and yet here we are. So that's something that and when we think about God's character and order, he loves math.
If you take the probability of all these different events,
Yeah.
it's an anomaly for sure.
All
Everything
right.
points back to God.
Everything points back to
it's
God.
crazy.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. In literature and in math, I just wish I could see God more in math. I need that. I need that support. I need that support.
Some of us don't have that luxury.
I need that help. I need that download. God, I need to see you more in this math equation. The math is a mathing, Lord, but I'm going to trust you anyway. Anyway, so quick lightning round, guys. First thing that comes to your mind, most inspiring high school moment this year.
For me, again, I would say reading through all of those college entry essays. It was amazing. I got to see.
You've seen us since freshman year.
I know. I've seen you guys from freshman
now we're
year,
adults.
and now you guys are writing such mature essays, and it's testament to how much you guys have grown.
Yeah.
It was a proud teacher moment.
Oh man, I love it. Coach.
It's tough. I think of a lot of different things, but I think just that sophomore-led Bible study is the types of conversations they have, and it was born within that desire to do it was from within. No one put it on them. So the fact that they wanted to do it, they wanted to get better. That speaks to me a lot. That spoke to me a lot. Yeah.
A verse that's encouraged you guys or your students recently?
I would say Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you.
Encouraging verse. Do not be transformed by the pattern. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Yes.
That's the one I use all the time. Romans 12:2. I just think that, like I was saying earlier, we kind of struggle with identity and getting swayed left and right, and what the world wants you to think. So if you kind of just start able to settle down, remove yourself from the current construct of what life is right now, then you're able to discern a little better. I talk a lot about discernment, but
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And then one habit you think every high schooler should build before graduation.
Oof.
Ooh, one habit.
Our class needs a lot of
A
advice.
lot of habits.
discipline.
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 Good.
I think it's hard. I think the current reward system in life is just immediate gratification.
Yeah,
So that's the
ability
opposite
to
of
wait.
discipline. Discipline's usually you do something hard now and then you'll get the reward later. So
Right, that grit.
from a moment to moment basis, even I catch myself sometimes should I mess around with these people or should I get to work?
Yeah.
And I want to just go make jokes with these with these kids.
Yeah.
When if I do this work now, it's gonna serve me later.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think it's all. I would say consistency. You got to be consistent, not just pray one day and forget the next day. I think the spiritual life is a consistent journey.
Yeah.
It's not something you can take a break.
It's a marathon. for
It's a
sure.
marathon.
Yeah.
So you got to be consistent. Don't take a day off.
Yeah.
Just be consistent and know that in every season, God is still God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. What advice would you give a student considering TCS for high school?
This is a very interesting question because for me, I'm a parent as well as a teacher, and I would say that it's really, really wonderful to invest in Christian education. Because you're investing not just in the present, you're also investing in the future.
Yeah.
Not just your child, but the future generations. You know what I'm saying? So for me, this is a gift. I think for me and my daughter, really, TCS is a gift. And I had to pray and ask God to lead me to a school when I first came to the United States. I didn't know about TCS, but the Lord, in so many ways, led me to TCS, and I'm so grateful.
I would say anyone considering Timothy just should, see where they're at and see if they want a bigger opportunity, because I think here at Timothy, opportunity is something that is abundant. I think that it's definitely a place to grow. It's definitely a place to be able to express yourself, and to just there's a lot of different things you could do here at Timothy and be yourself and make an impact. I definitely think that you could come here and make an immediate impact in whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether it be academics, athletics, all of the above. So if you're looking for a bigger role, a bigger purpose, just more of an environment to stand out, then this is definitely the place for you.
Love it. Love it. Ms. J, Mr. Buenano, thank you for not only teaching your subjects, but for shaping students here at TCS, shaping character and faith through the richness of even your cultural backgrounds and diverse experiences. Thank you again. And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Tigers Talk. I'm Dean Rodriguez, and with my co-host,
Julia McInerney.
And remember, faith grows every day at TCS. Until next time, go
Tigers!